So the book that I recently came out with in January is called Do Before I Do. And it's how couples can have conversations about money without, fights and breakups, or, at least doing your best to prevent it, and having that conversation so that you can help each other have that blissful financial future.
Yep.
And it was not a technical book. It wasn't a book where I'm explaining rate of return and things like that. It was, although that's important to know those types of things, but this was more of a book to inspire people to have conversations because, for example, when I was doing the studies and doing my research, like Fidelity does a money and marriage study quite often, and it was shocking. There was about 40% of couples who didn't know what their partner was making in terms of income.
This is Better Wealth with Caleb Guilliams. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Better Wealth Podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube, you know I'm not alone in the studio, and I want you to all welcome Jen Fontanilla. I said it right.
You did?
Yes, we kind of had a running joke because everyone butchers my last name, and your last name is not like the most easy, but I actually think it's quite easy when you think of like just once you say it once or twice. So Fontanilla.
There you go.
But anyways, we're very, very excited because as we're growing, I'm looking to find people that not only have extraordinary stories, have passionate whys, but also can come alongside people and help them. And you have such an amazing story. You have a great heart. I'm really grateful that you're here. I'm grateful that you're in the studio. I'm grateful that you're going to be joining the team. And so the purpose of this episode is to introduce you to another amazing team member of Better Wealth, and we're very excited because there's a lot of content's going to come. A lot of people are going to be impacted through this. So with that, why don't you throw out what is the one thing that you've learned so far, or what's the one thing that you've like maybe been learned about us or about our team since being here, because you've been in Denver for about 24 hours so far. And we're going to have another great day, but I wanted to make sure to at least capture this. And for a Friday Live, we're going to be airing this and introducing you to the team.
Yes. Thank you. So excited and blessed to be here. So thank you to you and the team. And I would say the one thing that sticks out the most to me is family. Family. And that's what's so encouraging, is not only for me to see the internal things as a family unit, as a system, from the personal as well as the business side. But it also gives me such a great insight and confidence in knowing that the people that Better Wealth is helping, you're in such good hands. You are in such good hands, filled with integrity and with this hope of wanting and helping people to get to where they want to be and understanding their money and how to better manage it. It just comes in full circle when I get the privilege to see how this is run so beautifully, and there's a system, and the family feeling is truly there. I appreciate you saying that. It's funny, we had friends. If you know me, my house is an open house pretty much, and so we had some existing clients that are like Better Wealth family members, but also just good friends. You got to meet them, and we had just a blast just catching up, and a lot of whiteboards. You can attest, there's a lot of whiteboards here. And a lot of things happening. So let me give you a little context of, how I met Jen, and then I want you to go back and share the story. If the people that listen to me know that I love hearing stories, because I feel like it gives context, it gives the foundation of what we're going to be building. Absolutely.
And so we met because I speak around the country to a lot of financial advisors, a lot of groups. I spoke to a group in California virtually, and you heard about me because someone shared a video that I was in. And you were like, hey, someone in the financial service business that like uses a computer. Wow, like this is amazing. Like
social media.
I can't believe this. And you're actually under the age of 50 years old. Like, what is going on here? So you heard me speak, and like again, I hate stereotypes, but it's true. Like I'm speaking, and there's about 60 plus people on, and like there's like 3 females. And now I would like to think I'm pretty strategic. I know that if we're going to grow, we've talked a lot about a Better Wealth Network. We've talked a lot about impact. I need to find other people that we can build up and be public figureheads, lighthouses, whatever you want to call them, and have them be able to teach, even if it's the same concept, but teach it in a way that it can be relatable. And so I'm always on the lookout. Like, if you know me, I'm always looking for amazing talent. If you've seen that we are looking for a videographer, like, I'm looking for people that have amazing talent that can translate that talent to help us share this message. And so I saw you. I think you asked a question. I just noted just, you know, some of the comments that you were sharing in the comments. I looked you up afterwards, probably very creepily, and I'm like, wow, you have a great website, you have a great social media presence, you're like really passionate about teaching, you have some kind of like money coaching certification. I'm like, that's interesting. And so we got connected, and I think within 2 meetings, I just was very frank with you. I was like, listen, I would love to like share with you what we're doing, and I would love for you to join our mission and our team. And you were crazy enough to listen.
Yeah, you're lucky I'm crazy.
And now you're here in Denver. So, but so that's a little bit of context. I want you to give the audience a little background on who you are, because up until now, you know, they're like, wow,
who is this?
They're like, wow, Mariah, where's Mariah? We actually, this is kind of funny. Mariah's super well loved, and for 3 Fridays in a row, she hasn't been on. So I'm like, maybe I'm a little bit bitter. Like, hey, they love you more than they love me, so I'm going to be, it's not true. It's just we have so much stuff going on. So why don't you talk about your background? It's funny when people ask, where should I start? I'm like, well, how do your parents meet? That might be a little too far back, but like, who are you? What's your story? And why are you going to be amazing fit for what we're doing as we impact 1 million people?
Absolutely. So I am from Los Angeles, California, to be specific, Orange County. And I was born in Chicago, but I came out to California. So West Coast person, practically.
Yep.
However, I used to come out to Denver very, very frequently. So it's so nice to come back after almost 10 years and just kind of be back to old stomping grounds.
And for those of you that are a little worried about California, trust me, we're not gonna let California rule BetterWealth. So just yeah, California has amazing weather. Some of their policies are questionable, but don't worry.
Yeah, don't worry. I'm fair. I'm very fair. So I grew up in California, and Southern California to be specific, and totally normal, totally normal life. My parents are still married. They're retired, and I have one younger brother. And he lives in the Bay Area,
nice.
San Francisco area. So it was a normal life. And then, you know, you kind of go through the normal route where, okay, I'm going to go to school.
Yep.
I'm going to pick my profession.
Right.
So there was a period of time where I thought I wanted to be a doctor. So I actually have a biology background, which you mentioned your father does.
Yeah. Yes. And I wanted to be a doctor for 1 week, and I took biology 1. I'm like, you know, Dad, sorry, I'm not going down this road.
Not going to follow in your footsteps.
Yeah.
And so I actually love science. So the interesting thing is, so I did go to college, and I finished with biology as a background. But the thing that happened along the way was I kind of had this realization that I actually have a very creative side to me. My grandfather is an artist. And so there was a part in me, I met a friend in college that told me he was doing graphic design. He actually had a flyer. And I said, well, how did you make that? And he said, oh, I took this Photoshop class. Mind you, this is like 20-something years ago. It was like Photoshop 3 or something. And so I was like, wow, this is fascinating. And so now at that point, my goal was like, I don't want to be a doctor anymore.
Right.
Let me go into graphic design.
Which is like complete opposite. Like
totally.
you're going to school to be a doctor. Were you motivated? You like biology, or did you like the idea of making a lot of money or status? Like, what motivated you the doctor route?
I actually really did love the science.
Okay.
I love the idea that, wow, I can learn science. I could help people. I can learn this. And yeah, there was some prestige to it, but it was more of the motivation of behind that, oh, I'm learning about the way life and, you know, is built from a cellular level, that type of thing, which is so different from now.
Yeah.
So what ended up happening, so I finished early, got out in 3 years. At that point, I'm like, I just want to get out of here. Because the city that I took, I went to UC Riverside, it's like desert.
Yeah.
I'm a beach person, like nice, cool California weather. And
you put up with the California taxes for that.
Yes.
We already had this conversation. You make good points. Yeah.
Totally. And so I'm like, I just want to get back to the beach cities area where I'm from. And so along the way, I ended up becoming a graphic designer.
Yeah.
So I went to a prestigious art school for a little bit, took a few classes, and then I ended up doing work for movie studios. So I explain to people, if you ever go in the movie theater and you see those giant cardboard box displays, and anybody in that industry, I know you're probably cringing, we call it corrugated. it's cardboard. And, you know, if you even like in GameStop or video stores, like video gaming stores, I worked on those displays. And so my specialty was packaging and displays. But what ended up happening is there was that moment in time, there's always that pivotal moment like when things change, right? And I was sitting at my desk in the office that I shared with somebody else, a coworker. And at that time, a friend of mine was getting married in Hawaii. So, of course, when you have a job, you got to put in that time, like the vacation request. And so when I went to go ask about it, I found out that in order for, now I had only been there for maybe a year.
Okay.
And when I asked HR, they said, you need to work 8 years before you can even get 3 weeks.
Are you serious?
I'm so dead serious.
Now, could you go and just non-paid vacation? Or were they like, yo, you're not allowed to go?
You know, I didn't even get to that point.
Okay, you were just like, I'm done here.
Totally. So at that point, I was like, okay, I'm not having this because I discovered about myself that I am very anal about my time.
Yeah.
In terms of being able to control it, which is so interesting because one of the themes that I get from Better Wealth is having that control, especially of your money. So this just kind of ties in with why I am so in love with a lot of stuff that I've been learning being here. And when I think back to how I was back then, and I still am, I really have this philosophy of that you need to have control of certain things in your life.
Yep.
And so with my time, I realized like, wait, 8 years? Are you kidding me? I'm not gonna put in 8 years to get a third week.
Yeah. And
so that was one moment that had happened. And then the other moment that had happened around the same time was a friend of mine in college was visiting. And I remember watching her sitting on the floor of her bedroom, and I was kind of sitting a little close to her where I could see she was writing something on the piece of paper, and I wasn't sure what she was doing. And I was like, oh, what are you doing? And she's like, oh, what she was writing was like the names of the stocks. So she was writing like the initials, right? So like Starbucks, SBX, things like that. And I'm like, what are you doing? And she's like, oh, I'm going to decide what stocks I'm going to buy. And then I had FOMO. And FOMO wasn't an acronym back then. But it was this fear of like, wait a minute, I'm missing out on something. Yeah. And we were both very intelligent. We were like on the, honor roll, that whole thing. But I'm very competitive as well.
Yeah, you're going to fit in great here, by the way.
Perfect. I already know.
Do you play ping pong? We're going to find that out.
Okay. Oh, yeah. I'll get better.
I'm going to add to my streak on the podcast.
I'm going to get better now that I know. And so I was like, wait a minute. How come she knows about stock picking and investments? And then I was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
That really bothered me.
Yeah.
And so it started this thing inside me realizing I didn't learn this stuff. I didn't learn how to manage money.
Yeah.
And at that time, as a designer, I was making a very lucrative income at, early 20s. But yeah, I didn't know what to do with the money. I mean, the only thing you learn how to do is open a checking account or a savings account.
Max out your 401k. Like it's all like they teach you certain things, but they're not teaching you why. And as a result, that's why we're broke as a country. It's like we don't actually know how to use our money as a tool.
Exactly. And the other thing too, now I didn't realize this at that time, but now looking forward, it's like, wow, you start to realize there are so many wealth strategies that are out there that are available to us, but we don't know. So when you don't know, you're completely lost. And so that was the other second reason why I'm like, I'm done. I'm done. I need to learn this stuff. Otherwise, I'm going to be completely lost. And then it also bothered me realizing that I have an opportunity here to help other people because if I'm feeling lost, there's got to be other, and mind you, I went to college and you would think that, oh, you're college educated. No, I didn't take one financial course. None of it, not even as a prerequisite or one of those.
Isn't that hilarious and like maddening that you can go to school, you can specialize in all this stuff, and we're also made to like do general education, but like you really right now I think there are a lot of schools are having like a 1 class requirement, but it's like money affects every single human being. You can be ignorant and say like you're not affected by money, you are, and yet we're not taught how to think about it. Exactly. And it's just like crazy to me. I almost wonder if that's by design. I don't want to be like that kind of person, but it's like, why is that the case?
You're absolutely right. And I have had the same kind of thoughts where I'm just like, why is it? And even people if I do teach a workshop, a financial workshop
Yeah.
or something, they'll be like, oh, they need to put this in the schools.
Yeah.
We need to have this.
Yeah.
The kids need to learn this. And it's been this ongoing thing. And so I think for those of us who value that financial literacy
Yeah.
and making a difference in people's lives, this is the best we can do at this moment until those things change. But this is why it's so important what the type of work that we're doing to get out to the masses.
Yeah. Absolutely. So you're at a place, you're making money, your friends talking about stocks, you have fear of missing out. Is that what got you into the whole money space?
Yes, it was part of it. And so I realized like, hey, you know what? Why don't I become licensed? So I did the whole licensing track, so that's when I got my life insurance license or life license. And then I even became securities licensed to transact investments. So I do have that financial advisor background.
And when was this?
This is like circa 2005.
Okay, and don't try to be doing math on her age, by the way. I know. But okay, so in 2005, you're in the financial service business.
Yeah.
And I know this because you were connected with people in Denver, actually. So you would come to Denver once a quarter.
Yes.
And that was like, and you were doing just typical financial advising, life insurance, investments, annuities.
Yes.
Yeah.
All those things, the products and stuff like that. Of course, with intention to help people achieve financial freedom, all those different things, you want to make an impact on their lives. And next to health, what better way than to help them with their money? So I went about that whole thing, and I did get to a point where, you know what, you start to question, am I doing the right thing?
Yep.
Do I really know what's out there? And I think, we all have gone through that feeling at some point in our life, and we have to have grace and compassion on ourselves. Totally. And I think it's important to also note that you have to remember you do the best that you can at the time that you were at with what you had and know.
Yeah.
So, but I did go through this moment where I'm thinking, okay, I know there's something else out there.
Yep.
I know there has to be other stuff. And so the other thing too that I realized, and this is how I ended up going into the coaching space. For example, a lot of people, and tell me if this is your experience too, a lot of people come to you and they want to do the investing like immediately. I think, and this is my theory, I think it's because investing sounds sexy and nobody's going to be like, yeah, I want to get a life insurance policy.
Well, and we're weird. People come to us all the time. They're like, Caleb, I want to do the and asset just because we have like almost 8,000 copies out in the world. I'm speaking and all that stuff. But they come in, I think what your point is, they come in and they want a transaction.
Yes.
They like want that product and they're like, if I can just do X, Y, or Z, I'm going to be set.
Yes, exactly. And so that's what I would see. But then when you unravel what's happening, you realize, and this is what I explain to a lot of people when they're asking about my story, what I would see is people want to do the end game or what they think is the end result. Here's the investing and whatnot. But then there was no plan in place. There was not a holistic approach, or the money mindset wasn't established. And so you realize at some point you're kind of working backwards.
Yeah.
And then you'll start to get the phone call like, hey, I racked up this debt. Can you stop the investments going in every month?
Yeah.
And it didn't sit well with me. And I realized this has to be done differently. And so I decided to go into the coaching space.
Can I put you on the spot for a second?
Yes.
What were some of the problems that you were seeing back? I mean, I know that you can articulate them a lot better now, but like, what were some of the problems that you were seeing then of like the disconnect? Because you had a heart to want to serve, and there was something inside of you that's like, what's going on? Like we have the right intentions, but we're not doing the right thing. What were you seeing any common themes that people were doing with their money, or like any examples where you're like, this is a big issue?
Well, I think one of them, like I said, is people wanting to work backwards.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's intentional. I think that's just what people are trained to do. Like, hey, I want this result, but not knowing the steps that you should have properly taken. And I would see that. And then sometimes, I would question, like, let's say some products that were being used. I would question, well, what's this going to look like in 10 years? Yeah. Is this really the right thing? And so, and the other part too is like, am I maximizing a team? Am I, and so, we'll come to that as we talk about Better Wealth and how everything is playing in today right now. But, those were the kind of things that I was questioning, like, again, with good intention, not to, I'm trying to make a buck off of people, but you do want to always serve and you want to operate with integrity, but you do kind of question, like, am I doing the right thing? And so I was going through that period of time where people listened. people did implement it, but it was always almost like, what's the next step? I'm trying to look ahead. Like, okay, you never want to have that feeling, is this plan going to implode?
Yeah, totally.
Yes.
Totally.
So after a while, I decided to go into the coaching space, where I thought, because as an advisor, you're looking tunnel vision 20, 30 years down the road. But when you're dealing with the coaching aspect and when you're helping clients, you're looking at how to help them develop good habits, how to run the day-to-day, how to do that spending plan, or how to get out of debt, those things, because those foundational things need to be established in order to build the financial household, in order to start implementing the wealth strategies that are going to come later on.
Yep.
Not that you can't do it concurrently at the same time, but that's what I'm saying. When I go back to think about how things were going backwards, it's like, here's the product, and then you realize, and then it just didn't sit well with me. So, I go into the coaching space, and then I even, like you're talking about that money coaching thing, I even took it a step further, where I wanted to better understand, how is money affected by our psychology? What are the things that we've learned from our mother or our father that impact our subconscious behaviors? And how does that manifest later on when it comes to the financial decisions that we're making today? And we don't think about that. It's just one of those things like, I never thought about that. Where how did you observe how your mom or your dad handled money in the house? What are the words that they said? Because we all either grew up in a positive or a negative environment. We either saw in our upbringing positive or negative ways that money was being handled. And those get passed along to us. We don't realize it. Now they're internalized subconsciously. And until you build awareness and mindfulness, you may not realize, why is it that you can't save? Why do you keep running into this brick wall of why is this plan not working? Because you can keep getting the plans and strategies, but there's something that's holding you back, and a lot of it can be mindset and these subconscious blocks. And so that's where the money coaching came in.
I love that, and I'm like, as you're talking, I'm like, another person I bring on the show that's just stealing the show. This is amazing.
I'll give you the light.
No, I'm joking here. I love it. I love how articulate you are. We talked even yesterday about, the psychology of money and how that's even going to be a course that is going to be developed. Yes. Let's talk about, so you have a book. Yes. I think that book talks also a little bit of your ups and downs in life. And then let's talk about that first. And I want to talk about some things that that the BetterWealth Nation can be looking forward to. And it also keeps us accountable when we say it live, or hundreds of people. Like, I know there's on average, 400, 500 people that listen. And so I'm like, I know if I say something, it's, I'm going to get emails. I appreciate you guys. I really do. Cause if it wasn't for you guys, I would stop. I would have stopped a long time ago. And it was some dedicated listeners early on that helped me go when no one was listening, and I'm super grateful for that. So just be prepared.
Awesome.
Whatever you say can be and will be held against you.
But this is such a testament to accountability.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
This is why you need a wealth coach. Accountability, and that's what makes things get done and happen.
Yes, I love it. Like, all of y'all, see, I'm trying to be Southern.
Yes, because yeah.
Yes. So all you guys that want to hit the gym and work out consistently, I know things like Corona and all that stuff has happened, but it's hard to be consistent if you don't have accountability. How in the world are we supposed to do it with our money? I actually have a podcast that's going to be coming out soon about why it's important to know where your house is at. Because I went for a run and I knew where the house was at, and I ran consistently, but if I didn't, there's no way I would have made it. Just because a lot of people lack because they don't even know where they want to go.
Exactly.
So, anyways, so let's talk about your book.
Yes. So the book that I recently came out with in January is called Do Before I Do. And it's how couples can have conversations about money without, fights and breakups, or, at least doing your best to prevent it, and having that conversation so that you can help each other have that blissful financial future. Yep. And it was not a technical book. It wasn't a book where I'm explaining rate of return and things like that. It was, although that's important to know those types of things, but this was more of a book to inspire people to have conversations. Because, for example, when I was doing the studies and doing my research, like Fidelity does a money and marriage study quite often, and it was shocking. There was about 40% of couples who didn't know what their partner was making in terms of income.
That's crazy.
It is
like after they're married.
Yes. It's absolutely nuts because when you think about it, imagine when you're helping clients.
Yeah.
And you're it's like trying to put a car together, but the engine's missing.
Honestly, some people don't even know what they currently make. So that's actually not as shocking as I like at first it is. The other thing is when I was at the bank, there were couples that would like hide accounts.
Yes.
I
call that financial infidelity.
Yeah. I mean, I think you might be right.
Yeah, it's actually a word. And what's interesting is when I talk about that, I bring it up, I'm surprised that people are like, I never thought of it that way. What is that? I'm like, well, here's an example I'll share with you guys. Have you ever seen people post on Facebook during Christmas time or Black Friday or all those Cyber Monday and they're like, don't tell my husband about the shopping bag. I left it in the car. I'm putting it in the closet. And it's all tongue in cheek and ha. But at the end of the day, it's like you're hiding assets from one another.
Yeah.
How can you plan if you don't have all the pieces?
Yeah.
It's crazy when I think about that. Because even when we do an assessment for somebody and we're asking about income, if there's major components missing, I mean, how solid is that plan?
Yeah,
when
it's tough.
It's like an attorney, a defense attorney. It's like, how many times have you seen a movie where they're talking to their client like, you should have told me that.
Yeah.
You should have told me. And
do you ever feel like a marriage counselor when you're meeting with people?
Not always.
Okay.
No, we don't get into that. It's rare. It's rare. Yeah.
Back when I was meeting with people consistently and we would talk about certain things like, anything that there was a couple that there was like on spending or your belief on something, it usually it's like, who's the spender in the relationship? And a lot of times it was the husband. Like I would say on average, it tends to be the other way around, but that's not always true. And so there would always be someone kicking someone under the table. Like it was pretty funny. I stayed out of the marriage counseling business,
Good.
But there was probably some like, I was like, hey, I'm not married. Don't listen to me, but I think you guys should communicate when it comes to money. So that's very interesting.
Yes, absolutely. And communication and not even just communication, but communication about money.
Yeah.
And this is why a lot of couples struggle in that area.
Yep.
It is one of the highest reasons and causes of divorce.
Yep.
I mean, the statistics back it up. Even in my own, I went through a divorce myself in 2009. And, there was like you were mentioning, yes, in the book, I talk about my own mistakes. And the crazy thing is when you go through crises or something that is very detrimental to you emotionally, my goodness, all logic goes out the window. And I look back and I think, I cannot believe some of the decisions, and this is what's so sobering and just like, oh my goodness, I was a financial professional.
Yeah.
And even myself going through that, I made some really dumb choices.
Yeah. And what I really appreciate about you so much is you are like, every time I get on a podcast, I say anything's off limits. And you're like, I'm an open book. And I know your story. And I know one of the ways that you help so many people is by being vulnerable and sharing the mistakes that you've made. But in a way, it helps so many people. It helps so many people because very few people are willing to be honest and open. And we just have this culture of like extreme ownership, and we are going to lead by example. And I've said multiple times, like I make mistakes internally. I'm apologizing almost every day for something, and it's truly because I don't want to get in the way of helping people. And so I really appreciate you even putting out a story and even like a book that talks about your experiences. And that's awesome. How can people, like, two things? You can maybe go to betterwealth.com. I don't know how fast we're going to be able to get this up. We do want to get her books and offer it on our website, but it's on Amazon, right?
It is.
Okay, so they can go to You can
go to, it's probably faster if you just go to dobeforeido.com. Okay. But you can find it on Amazon. You look up my name.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, isn't that kind of cool? Just like type in my name into Amazon and
hopefully
see what pops up.
Yeah, you'll see the other books too, because there's some collaborative projects, co-authoring and other books. But this particular one was purely about money.
Yeah, that's super, super cool. Yeah. So let's talk about number one, why BetterWealth? Like, why in the world are you with us? Why were you even attracted to what we're doing? And then what I want to also talk about is what's to come, because if we can do 1/3 of what we wrote about on the whiteboard,
we're gonna do it all.
It's gonna be good.
I said it there. It's on record.
They don't know what that means nothing because they don't see the whiteboards, but that's okay. Like it makes me feel better. But so why BetterWealth? I know that we've only known each other for 2 months maybe.
Yeah, I don't even think 2 months.
And you heard me speak,
Yes. So just like you, for me, I'm always looking for really great people to do work with because I'm a strong believer in collaboration, partnerships, and things like that, because I don't have an ego where I'm going to just do it by myself. It needs to be all about me, because when you can build a strong team, and that was something too, to answer part of the question, is when you have a team, it makes all the difference in the world. And
100%.
Yes. And so, we met on a webinar for insurance. And so and before that, what was interesting was a colleague of mine sent me, I had a question about a particular product, and a colleague of mine like, hey, check out this video. It's this young guy. He does a lot of video. That was kind of like the premise of it. And I was like, okay, cool. And I will say, and I don't think I told you this, I think what really caught my eye was like, here is somebody in the financial services space. Granted, you're young, which was great, and I'll speak to that. But they're utilizing a platform which doesn't typically happen in our space. Like going back to this webinar, most people were older, and there's this oh, I don't want to do social media. I don't need that. That's for the millennials, and I'm not even a millennial, so it's like, and I'm doing it. But you know what? This is what it was. It was like, you realize you have to pivot with the sign of the times. You have to, especially when it comes to marketing, because what's every advisor agent's issue? How am I going to find more clients? How am I going to do that? Marketing, believe it or not, is always like the biggest problem. But a lot of times the way that people in our industry approach it is it's an afterthought. It cannot be an afterthought. There has to be consistency in front of everything else.
Correct.
And so you got that. I quickly recognized that. And so when we were waiting, I was like, oh, what kind of camera setup do you have? And oh my gosh, because I was already in the space of trying to be consistent with my own content. But it's always refreshing when I see another professional in the financial space that's trying to do what I know is important. And it's very rare. So that's initially what caught my eye. But when you were speaking about, your methods and the things that you're doing and implementing at BetterWealth, that's what really even sold me more to BetterWealth, because of your philosophy in terms of also explaining, this is why we do the video. This is how we create client retention. This is how we create collaborative projects and partnerships with people. And really understanding that whole thing was so like, oh my goodness, you get it. You get it. And then the other thing that was extremely important to me was how much you talked about your team and the system, and that it was a solid team. Because, often we see companies and sometimes you don't even know what's happening behind the scenes. But when Caleb spoke about the team and how everybody, you got it down to a system where you guys were all working in harmony. And I know there was a feeling in me like, man, what would it be like if I could be plugged into something like this? And I didn't know necessarily at that time it was going to happen and turn out this way, but just that imagination and thinking of like, wow, what if I could plug into something? And here's the end game, because if I could do that, or if I could create that, how much more could I better serve the client?
That's big. Yeah. And I was asked the other day on a podcast, like, out of all the things that you've done, what are you most proud of? And I, without hesitation, I'm like, the team. The team that I get to surround myself with and have the pleasure of like being a part of, just like it makes me emotional just thinking about, because there's people like that get up every single day that are so amazing, so gifted, and they're putting their time and energy into helping us build what we're building at BetterWealth. It's like, how that's amazing.
It is.
And so I'm really grateful that like it caught your attention, and it's so it's just interesting how like the right people just very much get attracted to what we're doing.
Yes. Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah.
Because think about it. There's so many people out there that are in jobs that they hate. And this isn't really a job.
Yeah.
We're so passionate about it. And then there's so much integrity involved. And one thing I do love too, if you even had the pleasure or the opportunity to get that nice card with your book, what was the mission on it? 1 million people by 2025. And I saw that, I was just like, I want to be a part of that.
Yeah. And it's so interesting because we've had a different responses on that 1 million. There's some people that go love it, and it's very much like, hey, this is almost impossible, but we're gonna go for this. And then there's some people that are like, Caleb, don't get too caught up on the number. Don't forget to impact, and 100%. So it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, I want to put something out there to keep us accountable, and know that it would be a shame if we just did 1 million quote unquote lives and didn't actually better them off. So it's a constant struggle, but the only way that we're going to do that is through a team thinking differently. And part of our strategic way of thinking at BetterWealth is we need to bring on public figures like yourself and really create resources around how we're producing podcasts, how we're producing YouTube videos, how we're getting you stages. And because you're able to speak to a group of people that I'm just not going to be as effective. Like, I'm telling you, women are underserved in our marketplace. And I get fired up to think about not just women, but the other groups of people that you can speak to. Yeah. And I don't know if you want to mention anything about that, because I know you have a heart for that, and I'm really excited to help play a small role into getting this message of living more intentionally, getting your money thing figured out. Like, it's really exciting.
Yeah, so I will speak to it, because we did talk about it the other day the other day. I've been here for a day.
It's about 24 hours, not even. But yeah, right. we definitely run around it.
Yes. So one of the things that I have a heart and passion for is not only just how do we get this message out there, but how do we get it to the communities, the underserved communities, especially the minorities. And I hate using that word, because it's like, but I'm going to use it for the sake of just to keep the conversation simple so that you know who I'm referring to. And, when I look at statistics, it's very disheartening. And, even when I speak to people in those communities, it's always like, well, we don't have those resources, and well, we didn't learn that, because it's not like, let's be real. And typically the way that it's looked at in the white community, it's normal. Right. There is generational wealth. Those things are passed down. Those things are normal. That you just get a living trust.
Right.
But when you look at other underserved communities, that thing is so foreign.
Yeah.
And so they run into a lot of different things. And I got some heat from this post I did, but you know what? It woke people up, and it made people aware. I did a post last year where I was talking about life insurance. But the premise of the post was saying that car washes, bake sales, fish fries, GoFundMe, those aren't financial plans. And, some people were kind of like, ooh, this is good, because it kind of, it hit home. It hit home for a lot of people. And I said, listen, because somebody thought that it had a racially charged motive. And I said, no. And I had to get on the phone with them, and I had to explain, like, no, let me tell you something. It's every group. Every group has some kind of way of not handling these emergencies or this death in the family. And I said, and I'm listing out all these alternatives. And I said, this is why it's so important to emphasize the importance of life insurance.
Totally.
Because, every other month I'm seeing somebody do a GoFundMe.
Yeah.
And it just kills me, because I'm like, and I said kills me, and we're talking about life insurance. But it's like, why didn't you get at least a simple term policy?
Yeah. It very much is generational. We talked about this last night. It's like, we get deep here at the BetterWealth house, but it's like, okay, there's issues going on in our country, and it's not always one versus another. It's sometimes we can be killing ourselves from within.
Yes.
And it's one of those things where it's like, it's not a right now, we're not pointing any fingers. I know, like, as we speak, there's a lot of tension right now. The fact of the matter is this: there are people all across the countries and all types of families that are learning or not learning anything. And that's very much helping. Like, I am blessed because I grew up in an amazing household. And while my family didn't like teach a lot of financial strategies, we like grew up, we had money. My parents taught me to be frugal. They taught me to be proactive. That is such a blessing.
Yeah.
And so it's like one of those things where it's like, listen, like we need to figure out a way to break through and help people that maybe not had that upbringing. Mm-hmm. Because again, like that's why we're doing what we're doing.
Yes. And that's what, another reason why, you guys have just been so amazing in so many different ways. And I just, the theme that continuously runs through everything is getting to more people, helping more people, and just serving and having a servant's heart. And this is why we're so passionate about getting this message out there, because when you look at the way people are handling their money, the wrong way. It doesn't have to be that way. There are so many resources. And so now it's like, how do we get that message? And how do we not only just get the message, but how do you start to implement the plans?
Yeah. So let's talk before we close up what we're hoping to do. And this is what I'll say. Part of what we wrote on the whiteboard is how we make you a lighthouse, a public figure, how you can help us grow our message by playing offense. And so it's essentially like using the BetterWealth resources and umbrella and the network. And so how do we get you on stages? How do we get potentially another book or get your current book out? Because the message is relevant. Whether you're married or not, by the way, it's relevant. But then the other thing is we're going to be starting a podcast.
Yes.
Stay tuned. I don't know exactly when the launch date is going to be, probably next year, but maybe I'm not sure. But it's like we would love to know topics. We're just trying to figure out names. Like we're very much in the brainstorming part right now. And then also I'm really bullish on YouTube. Like, I really, really think that YouTube is going to be just a space to continue to grow in. And so if there's topics, again, like I'm making a commitment to making special YouTube videos, not even that are not even going to be on the podcast, but like are just on our YouTube channel. And I know you're going to do the same. And there's a lot more, but it's like one of those things where what can we do consistently? Because if you do one thing consistently and do it well, your life will be changed in a year. So stay tuned. I don't know if you have extra thoughts there, but if you're somebody that is resonating with the message and you would love to hear something or get Jen's thoughts on something, if there's like a perfect podcast name, if there's we read every single email. And you can email me at caleb@betterwealth.com. You can email Jen at jen@betterwealth.com. And just welcome her. It's
I would love to hear from you guys.
Yes. I would love for you to get a taste of the amazing community that we have. Any final thoughts on that BetterWealth interview? Any like embarrassing moments that you forgot to share that you're gonna be like, man, I wish I would have shared that?
No, I don't think there. I just feel so good about everything, and I think one of the things that's so encouraging is there's going to be these opportunities in your life. You know, I'm a believer, and I constantly, pray that, God, open the doors that you want me to walk through.
Yeah. Connect
me to divine connections and people that you want me to meet and do amazing things with, and also. We think about those things that we ask for that don't work out. Trust me, those are doors God did not want you to walk through.
Yeah.
So
That's good perspective.
When you shift that perspective, everything's perception.
Yep.
When you can shift it, it doesn't feel like such a loss, right? It doesn't feel like, oh, I'm a failure, but it's like God was looking out for you.
Yep.
And so when this whole thing happened, the thing that just stood out from the beginning, it was just like there was always this peace and calmness and alignment and congruency that just ran through the whole thing. And that's when I just knew, like, this was so right. This was so right. This was like something that I had been looking for. So when you said, like, I'm looking for this, I'm like, I've been looking for this, a system, a team. So, it's just amazing when you really operate in integrity and you have this purpose and mission. And then when you start to have all these other pieces fall into place, you just get really fired up because so many more amazing things are going to happen. And so I just want to say thank you publicly.
Thank you.
To you and to the team, and for being so welcoming and allowing me to be part of the BetterWealth family. And I'm just so excited about what we're going to do.
Yeah, I told you it's going to be definitely the hardest year of your life. As far as like, we're working we have to work uphill because of the message that we have. It's very much opposing to, like, a lot of people don't like it. And yet we have a moral obligation to do that. And so thank you for being so willing, having great energy, and being just a positive light. And we're very excited to share this message of intentionality and intentional living through you and just through the BetterWealth Network. So, if you've listened to any of my podcasts, this will be good. Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. But one of the ways that I like to end the podcast is to ask a legacy question. And I know you have a 9-year-old son.
Oh, yeah.
And I know that you have some really close friends dear to your heart. If this was your last day on earth and you were with the people that you love the most, what would you make sure to pass on in that last conversation to them?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would say always remember to be compassionate and loving. and to be open-minded. I think that's what holds a lot of us back from our greatness, is that when we're so close-minded that you don't receive information, you miss out on so many opportunities because of being closed-minded, and then we forget to be compassionate and loving to one another. Yeah. And so alongside with that, I'll end with this as well, is learn how to forgive.
Yeah.
Others as well as yourself, because we all make mistakes. We live on planet Earth. We're human beings.
Yep.
And I think when we don't learn how to release and forgive, and I have to remind people, the forgiveness is not for the person that offended you or hurt you. Yep. Because sometimes people want that.
Yeah.
Sometimes that person you need to forgive is dead. And you can't get the forgiveness. But the forgiveness is for you to release that. But when you can release these different things, all these other things can come into your life as a blessing. Because if you're hanging on so tightly to so many things that you need to be letting go of, your hand isn't open to receiving blessings. And so that's something that I would encourage anybody that I was leaving on my last breath. Because if you can even do those things, your life would have such a different outlook and ending.
Yep. I'm not even going to add anything to that. That was very beautifully said. And I would say that is one thing I'm grateful that my parents raised me on that. And I would say that's very much the definition of wealth is to live. I would say living with unforgiveness is very unhealthy and not anything to do with wealth. So thank you for being on here. Thank you for being such a good sport.
Oh, you're welcome.
And thank you for the hours and hours and hours that you're going to be spending coaching, teaching, speaking. It's going to be fun.
Yes, so excited and ready to serve you all.
All right, stay tuned. She's going to have a lot of content coming out. As always, those of you that help share our message, that like the video if you're watching this on YouTube, or that are listening to this on the podcast, thank you. This is only made possible because of you. We're growing and building a lot of momentum because of you guys. And so we are super excited, and we're constantly having conversations on how can we better serve our community. And these are steps in the right direction. So thank you. Take care. Have a very intentional weekend. Thank you so much for listening to the BetterWealth podcast. It would mean the world to me if you could hit subscribe, leave a review, and share this with the people that you know and love.